Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe here with me, my co-host Stan.
Hello and greetings.
And let's hope that this video is shorter than the past few Dragonlance videos and far more successful than the last Winter Night podcast video. Laurana's team ended up going through Icewall and dealing with an insane wizard and walrusman, which is as zany and ridiculous as it sounds, constantly mentioned for a full chapter, so that chapter has very little to offer. Other than a mention of how the knighthood has come to no longer believe in Huma, which the closest equivalent would be if the Templars had stopped believing in Jesus, which is pretty horrifying when you think about it, and when you consider some of the reports we get from the tortured Templar, a strong possibility. I'm just saying, Sturm wants to keep believing, but finds it really hard to. Meanwhile, they're being pursued, their boat is being pursued by a dragon called Sleet, who's apparently not very bright, but is smarter than some of these companions, and gets the idea to blow against the sails and push it towards Urgoth, with Sleet following them across the Syrian Sea. And it's mentioned that Sleet, okay, this is where we get a really stupid concept, that it is necessary for an animal to survive in the Arctic, or at least in cold weathers. This is just so idiotic a concept that it pulled me out of the book.
Put your fave palms in the comment section down below.
How did this get past editorial? Derek, for his part, doubts even the faith of Paladin, and he takes a great deal of satisfaction in reminding Sturm you're of the lowest ranks of the knighthood. Sleet is wounded by an arrow on page 156 to 157 of the paperback edition, and we find out Laurana has Wormslayer, the Dragonlance they withdraw from a statue, the dragon orb, into this large box. Now, when they crash ashore, because Sleet forgot to take notice of the rocks, it was still a pretty good plan on her part before she flew off back to Icewall. Gilthanas takes notice of the fact that there are elves. Goes, oh, Sylvanesti elves, and tries to greet, only for the Sylvanesti to then attack him, knock him out without any negotiation. Derek, moron that he is, references the dragon orb, so that the Sylvanesti immediately go, wait, dragon orb? Dibs! And Laurana is forced to show it to them. You might complain that Laurana is being foolish, but at this point, Derek's pretty much already sold them out. He's pretty much the Zap Brannigan of fantasy fiction.
That's putting it lightly.
Laurana, on the other hand, confused by how the three races of elves are quarreling, and she decides, okay, fine. Elistan, get over here. You're healing my brother Gilthanas. The Sylvanesti pitch a fit and attack, threatening to kill Elistan and preferring the idea of leaving Gilthanas to die than let a human put dirty hands on him to heal him, even though this is a prince and they're dealing with a princess. But they call in a supposed Kaganesti to come and heal Gilthanas.
Mental gymnastics.
Yeah, of these buffoons is more than one can bear. But they're actually geniuses compared to the next group of people we see in the next chapter. The heads of the Qualinesti. Solostaran has apparently moved into a 6-bedroom house built by the Kagonesti, with the Kagonesti going, this is the finest piece of architecture we've ever built. And you have Solostaran. It's barely adequate. Solostaran even admits that page 169, we find out he doesn't really care about the fact that Gilthanas was sent to die. He could have accepted the loss of his son Gilthanas. It was, after all, a heroic, noble act. The young man had led a group of adventurers into the mines of Pax Tharkis to free the humans imprisoned there and draw off the dragon armies threatening Qualinesti. What do you think of just that part?
Dismissive.
Oh yeah, it's nice that my son went off to die for me. You know who should have probably been leading the companions in there? Solostaran himself. And I know people say, well, he has to lead a nation. He's old. He's lived his life. And he should have tasked Gilthanas. Yes, Gilthanas, not Porthios, with leading the Qualinesti if need be in his absence. And the reason I say that is that no parent should ever have to bury their child. But here's the problem. You have a parent who doesn't care about his child. Let's actually think about Beauty and the Beast, for example. That's a great story, essentially fantasy, where what does Maurice say when Belle says, all right, I'll take my father's place? What does he say? I'm old now. I've lived my life. Don't trade your life for mine, Belle. Solostaran would probably end up skipping out, screeching with joy, and laughing the whole way out.
A heroic dead son going to save the downtrodden. Looks good on his resume.
Yeah, that seems to be all that he cares about. The speaker could not, however, accept his daughter's loss, or her dishonor. So we learn, he genuinely cares about Laurana. Gilthanas, he couldn't pluck a hair.
But then there's the one word, or her dishonor.
Here's the thing. She had run off after her childhood friend, Tanis half-elven. This speaker was heartsick, consumed with grief. How could she she do this? How could she bring disgrace upon her household? A princess of her people chasing after a... Qualinesti was founded by some half-elves and elves who consorted with humans. Qualinesti did not originally have any of these prejudices. This is Solostaran's dirty work. This is him who injected into Qualinesti its prejudices. His son has only taken it further. And then there's the fact that Solostaran has reduced Cagonesti, a great many of their tribes, to slavery. Mostly he's poaching the young so as to draw them in and enslave them in mines for field work, slave labor. So are the Sylvanesti. But the Qualinesti, who originally stemmed from Kifkanon, who was in his first marriage married to a Cagonesti, then in his second marriage married to a human, and his children were all mixed race. All of his supporters were pretty much half-elves, or the parents of half-elves, or the parents of half-Cagonesti elves. This shows just how far they have fallen from his values. Not all the Qualinesti fled. Most of them are still in the forest of Qualinesti, basically tilling the fields and doing what they have to. This is nobility. The nobility have arrived in the Cagonesti lands and are over hunting. Not because they need the food, but to reduce the Cagonesti to starvation out of spite. What's funny is that the Qualinesti back in the Qualinesti lands are apparently doing pretty darn well. They have no leaders, but apparently they're doing great. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Do the Qualinesti really need the speaker and his family? The Sylvanesti are pretty much all over the place because they're split up. Most of them fled. A lot of them probably stayed near to the Sylvanesti lands but don't have much further that they can get to. Their nobility and some of their merchants and some of their people fled to the same place in southern Urgoth. The Qualinesti were abandoned to die by their leadership, but they still managed to rally, to probably use guerrilla tactics to destroy Verminard's army, because they're treading into the magical forest of the Qualinesti, which there's no way they could actually make it very far. They also have no dragon support or air support. Verminard's army we know is pretty much annihilated because they don't make it into Qualinesti. Qualinesti remains unconquered. The forest is not burnt down, nor is it terribly affected. So lore-wise, the peasants basically did better than if they had their leaders around. Which I'm going to say, maybe the peasants need to have a revolution and get rid of their leaders, because what the hell do they need them for?
The best person for the job, Gilthanas, has a lot of duties to attend to.
Yeah, he's got to clean up after Daddy. Speaking of which, on page 173 of the paperback edition, you have the speaker who, over the course of a few days, he bonds with Elistan, apparently getting along with Elistan. So this is where we have to praise Elistan. He does have some diplomatic acumen, leverages support to reason with Solostaran. The problem is, Elistan is dealing with someone who's genuinely evil, and he's trying to negotiate and diplomatize. But you can't diplomatize with someone who has no good in them. Come on, let's be honest. Solostaran was a supporter of the King Priest. You honestly think he's going to negotiate? But we also find out that Solostaran's sexist. Remember, he was not willing to negotiate with Goldmoon, but he's willing to negotiate with Elistan. And then, on top of that, there's how he treats Laurana. At the same time, it's just a way in which Solostaran behaves and comports himself in this chapter that's just... I'm not trying to scream, oh, sexism. I'm not one of those people who gets into the whole internet battles over whether someone is on one political side of the aisle or sexist or whatever. But the thing about Solostaran is that this is a core component of his character. He's not like, say, Gilthanas or Tanis, who frankly aren't. It is just that, as I have said before, let's call a spade a spade. And given that Solostaran is someone who has been misbehaving for centuries in universe, this is just more of the same for him. In marked contrast to Lorak, whom we know is not, for example, sexist, because of the way he treats and honors his daughter. Solostaran tries to tell his daughter that he'd like her to be the scribe, but, she's busy with other things around the household. And she says, Speaker, I have told you, we cannot stay. Haven't you been listening to me and to Elistan? We have discovered the dragon orb. Now we have the means to control dragons and bring an end to this war. We must take the orb to Sankrist. Completely reasonable. Laurana's right. Solostaran, stop, Laurana! You know nothing of what you speak. The dragon orb is truly a great prize, and so should not be discussed here. As for taking it to Sankrist, that is out of the question. And Derek says, I beg your pardon, sir. Now Derek actually rises and bows, and he's very polite about the whole thing. But you have no say in the matter. The dragon orb is not yours. I was sent by the Knights Council to recover a dragon orb if possible. I have succeeded, and I intend to take it back as I was ordered. You have no right to stop me. Derek led the expedition. Technically, now I don't like Derek. He is a member of the Knighthood of the Roses and one of the top guys in the Knighthood. He has diplomatic immunity, and on top of that, he's representing Lord Gunther, the head of the Knighthood, and he was the one who laid hands on the dragon orb alongside Laurana. Technically, by all rights and by right of conquest, his. The speaker says, my son Gilthanas brought it into this land, which we the Qualinesti declare to be our homeland in exile. That makes it ours by right. I never claimed that, father, Gilthanas said, flushing as he felt the companion's eyes turn to him. It is not mine. It belongs to all of us. And Porthios shoots his younger brother a furious glance. Gilthanas stammered, then fell silent. So we also get the family dynamics that Gilthanas is not respected or liked, even though in a previous paragraph it mentions that he was treated nicely, but you can almost tell that it's done just to make Laurana jealous. The thing is, this paragraph shows that although they might have been courteous to Gilthanas, deep down, was there any kind of love for him?
As harsh as we can get about Elistan and Derek Crownguard, the fact that
both of them are like, no, this isn't yours. This belongs to the knighthood, and we need to actually get this to the knighthood if we want a fighting chance for everyone.
They're more on the level.
Heck, remember, Alhannah from the very beginning was a lot more on the level. Alhannah just went looking for help from anyone. She was willing to throw herself at the feet of humans, and she did. Alhannah is willing to learn. Flint decides that since Laurana's the one who killed Thealthas, it should be her who decides. At which point the speaker says, if it be hers, the speaker said in a voice older than his hundreds of years, then it is mine by right, for she is not of age. What is hers is mine, since I am her father. That is elven law and dwarven law too, if I'm not mistaken. Flint's face flushed. He opened his mouth to reply, but Tasselhoff beat him to it. Isn't that odd? According to Kender law, if there is a Kender law, everybody sort of owns everything. Yeah, the Kender won that one round. But the thing is, Flint's tried to make an argument to favor Laurana.
And tried the whole dwarven law over Flint.
And Flint has no argument. Derek ends up once again arguing. The orb is ours. You have no right to it at all. It certainly does not belong to your daughter or to your son. They traveled with me only by my courtesy. Actually, that's actually the truth. He extended his protection to them. So technically, they were under his command. I'm just saying, by Solamnic law, and even by Elvish custom. I am happy to have been able to escort them back to their homeland. And I thank you for your hospitality. But I leave tomorrow for Sancrist, taking the orb with me. Porthios stood up to face Derek. The Kender may say the dragon orb is his. It doesn't matter. The orb is in elven hands now, and here it will stay. Do you think we are foolish enough to let this prize be taken by humans to cause more trouble in this world? Porthios is proving his idiocy because, of course, we gotta bear in mind, he's dumber than Zap Brannigan and Homer Simpson put together. It actually makes both look like Sherlock Holmes. Derek tells him, do you realize the trouble this world is in now? The dragons drove you from your homeland. They are approaching our homeland now. He says more, but he tries to explain that the orb is their only hope. But Porthios says, you have my leave to go back to your homeland and be burnt to a crisp for all I care. It was you humans who steered up this ancient evil. Where the heck does he get that one from? It is fitting that you fight it. High Lords have what they want from us. They'll undoubtedly leave us in peace here on Urgoth. The orb will be kept safe. The Dragon High Lords will want the orb because, you know, they're not exactly safe with it in enemy hands. And, oh, yeah, sure, they chased us from our homeland, but surely they'll now stop chasing us. Honestly, because when you're as evil as Solostaran and Porthios, who believe in genocide, slavery, and even abandoning their own duties and people, they abandon qualinesty. And here's the thing. Kifkanon would have made sure that dereliction of duty, treason, is something he exiled his one half-elvish son for. And he stated, no one is above the law. So Solostaran and Porthios can be hung as traitors, or, given the precedent, exiled. And Solostaran committed treason when, you know, he consorted with the king priest. As for Porthios, he committed treason when he abandoned qualinesty time and again.
Them keeping the dragon orb, it'll only cause more devastation. They don't have someone who could properly control it.
No, but they don't.
Might as well hand it over to
the High Lords. Laurana tries to reason with him. You know he speaks truly, father. It's mentioned elven women did not attend war meetings, much less speak. Porthios, our father told us in Qualinasi that the Dragon High Lord wanted not only our lands, but also the extermination of our race. Have you forgotten? So Porthios has basically contradicted himself, and Laurana's like, wait. Can you explain this one to me? Because, you know, you kind of contradicted yourself. If Laurana, yes, because of us. Here she gets angry because it's like, wow, that was one Dragon High Lord. Verminard, he is dead. Yes, because of us, not you. Pointing out how little Porthios done and how he nobly and bravely tucked tail and ran the other way. Solostaran, Laurana! Apparently he's also taller than Porthios, which you forget yourself, young woman. You have no right to speak to your elder brother like that. Even though, I'm going to be honest, Laurana's more of a man than him.
Sure, she caused a lot of drama when she went. She went and did something.
Yeah, but let's say in medieval custom, she left to pursue her fiance. Bear in mind, Tanis was her fiance. She left to elope with her fiance, but she comes back pretty much with the equivalent of the enemy's nuclear bomb after braving so many dangers and fighting 2 Dragon High Lords, as far as you know, and past array of dragons. I mean, no offense, but how would you react to that if that was your daughter? We faced perils of our own in our journey. Yeah, right. They didn't face any dangers. They didn't. Bear that in mind, folks. He remembered his duty and his responsibility, as did Gilthanas. They did not go running off after a half-elven illegitimate child, like a brazen human And Laurana went white to the lips. Father, what were you about to say? And you have Gilthanas. Come away, Laurana. He didn't mean it. We'll talk in the morning. The speaker said nothing, his face gray and cold. You were about to say human, Laurana said. Go to your lodgings, Laurana. So that is what you think of me. That is why everyone stops talking when I come near them. Human, yeah. And you have, sister, do as your father commands. As for what we think of you, remember, you brought this on yourself. What do you... I might as well use this voice for Porthios. What do you expect? Look at you, Laurana. You're dressed like a man. You proudly wear a sword stained with blood. You talk glibly of your adventures. He goes on about how she spent her nights with every guy. Laurana, of course, passes out. She's taken care of by Silvara. She decides, screw being around these losers. Daddy and Porthios have no intention of actually doing anything. Laurana gets it in her head to conspire to free her friends, breaking all diplomatic immunity. After his daughter passed out, the response was, I guess I imprisoned this ambassador from Solamnia. You know, the lands that could possibly destroy all of the Qualinesti?
Declaring war on Solamnia, who would have every right not just to march on Dim, but to march on Qualinos.
But you got to bear in mind, this is Solostaran school of rulership. You do something stupid, and you wait for your second-born, or your daughter, or Tanis half-elven to come over and wipe it for you.
And Derek, essentially, pretty much, even if he said...
Laurana ends up using every sly trick in her book to get her friends out, relying on her friend Theros, who's been staying with the Kalgonesti and trying to teach them metallurgy, because that's what the Kalgonesti have been selling themselves into slavery to get a hold of, because they recognize the value of metallurgy. Not all of them are as stupid as Kaganos was millennia ago. They're like, oh yeah, this is useful stuff. What they're being asked is, okay, sell your daughters and sons into slavery to us. Theros sees that as evil. He's slipped into the Qualinesti camp, helps liberate the imprisoned companions. Laurana, meanwhile, goes to secure their possessions, even as Silvara and Theros had helped secure boats to escape because they're on an archipelago. So Solostaran ended up deciding to take a hold of Tanis' sword, Wormslayer, claiming it as his own, along with the Dragonlance that Sturm claimed, and that belongs to Sturm, and the Dragon Orb that technically by right goes to the knighthood. Basically, Solostaran decided dibs, which the sword Wormslayer is not Solostaran's by right. It goes to Tanis. It was Kif Kanan who gave it to him, and he did get the full story out because even Gilthanas said, nope, not mine. And the one with the best right to the sword after Tanis would be Gilthanas, or Laurana, because Laurana was Tanis' fiancée, as far as the Qualinesti know. What Solostaran does decide, well, what's hers is mine, and what's everyone else's is mine, and what's mine is mine. Laurana ends up stealing it away after tricking her idiotic father, who wakes up in the middle of the night to find his daughter pretty much sneaking off with the chest, and Laurana says, it is I, father. I wanted to tell you I am sorry, father, and I ask you to forgive me. Oh, Laurana, I forgive you, my daughter. Now return to your bed. We'll talk in the morning. You know how stubborn Laurana is. Making off with all your stuff, and what's your reaction?
Okay.
Like, well, I am already in my pajamas. How has this guy not been hung by his people yet? Maybe the only thing that's kept them from doing that is the memory of Kif Kanan. But that said, the companions sneak off, and they have their stuff back. Can you see why Dragonlance Sagas really didn't like these two? Now, he condemned the whole of the Qualinesti people. I say no, because most of the Qualinesti are still in Qualinesti.
Just because the leaders were bad doesn't mean the people were bad as well.
They have healthy relations, and even friendly ones, with the villages of Solus and Haven and the Order of Sorcery. The thing about the Qualinesti people is we constantly hear about how they actually like outsiders, and they don't mind trade.
They were essentially willing to allow the former prisoners to stay there.
The leaders are total jerks. And we also got to bear in mind Porthios is incompetent. And it's him that's been managing the Qualinesti camp and enslaving the Kalgonesti for the most part. Because Solostaran saw it as, well, best leave everything in the hands of my son Porthios to manage things as my chief minister.
Porthios couldn't lead properly, even if he was at the head of a parade.
The Sylvanesti leaders present in southern Urgoff are also incompetent. The Kalgonesti are feeling the brunt of this. Next chapters deals with a couple of the Kalgonesti, some of whom are actually a little snippy with Gilthanas because, well, they like to tease him a little, but they're also a little... They've had their fill of Qualinesti being a little lazy. Gilthanas at least has the good grace to laugh at himself and agree with respect because they realize, okay, he's not like his brother and father. To Gilthanas' mind, the Sylvanesti and the Kalgonesti are brothers because they're all elves. Porthios and Solostaran have no such conception of this. There's also Solostaran who at one point envies the heavy caste system of the Sylvanesti and is like, man, I wish I could have inflicted that on the Qualinesti. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Puma taking down Takesis.